Most people are using ChatGPT the same way they used Google 10 years ago, typing a question into a box, waiting for an answer, reading the response, and going back to their lives. And for a while, that felt revolutionary, because it was. But I have been sitting with a question for a long time now, a question that I think deserves an honest answer. Is typing prompts into a chat window really the best interface for what AI can do? Is the glass rectangle in your pocket, the device that defines how a generation interacts with the most powerful technology ever built, really the right container for this? Because here's what I know. The AI has gotten extraordinary. The interface has not changed. We have a Ferrari engine inside a horse carriage. And something is being built right now to change that. Something that has been 2 years in the making. Something quiet. Something that most people do not know about yet. And I want to tell you exactly what it is, what it does, why it matters, and why this might be the most significant thing happening in technology right now. Stay with me. Let me give you the context you need, because the backstory here is important, and most people do not know it. In 2015, a group of people sat in a room together and made a decision. They decided that artificial intelligence was coming, that it was going to be the most powerful technology humanity had ever created, and that the question of who built it and how and with what values was too important to leave to chance. That group became OpenAI, and over the next decade, through extraordinary effort, through the work of some of the most talented researchers in the world, OpenAI produced something that changed everything. ChatGPT, a product that reached 1 million users in 5 days. Instagram took 2.5 months to reach that number. Twitter took 2 years. ChatGPT did it in 5 days. And from that moment, the question shifted. Not whether AI would change the world, that was already answered, but how people actually access it, how they would live with it, how it would fit into the texture of daily life. Not as a tool you open, as something more ambient, more present, more genuinely integrated into how you move through your day. That question is what led to what I am about to tell you. Here is the partnership that nobody fully understands yet, and that I think changes everything about what comes next. After ChatGPT launched, after the world realized what had just happened, 2 people started meeting, not in a boardroom, not in a formal setting, in a design studio, sketching, thinking, asking questions that most technology companies never stop to ask. One of them you know, one of them you might know less well. The first is someone who has spent the last decade building the infrastructure of artificial intelligence, who understands better than almost anyone what this technology can do, and what it cannot do yet. The second is the person who designed every Apple product you have ever loved, the iMac, the iPod, the iPhone, the MacBook. Decades of work that turned a struggling computer company into the most valuable company in human history. He left Apple in 2019, started his own design firm, and was reportedly designing furniture. The man who created the iPhone was making coffee tables, and then these conversations started. And something shifted. Because the question being asked in that studio was one he had never been asked before. Not how do we make a better phone, not how do we make a faster chip, but something more fundamental. Computers can now see, think, understand. But we are still interacting with them the way we did in 2007. Is this the best we can do? That question, that specific question, is what brought him back to technology. And what is being built as a result is something genuinely new. Let me tell you what they are actually building, because the details matter. And the details are not what most people expect. Forget everything you think a next-generation device looks like. This is not a phone, not smart glasses, not a speaker sitting on your counter waiting to be activated. What is being described by people close to the project is something approximately the size of your palm, a smooth form, no sharp edges, and here is the detail that stops people. No screen. None. In an era where the average person spends more than 7 hours a day looking at screens, where every device in our lives is defined by the glass rectangle we stare into, this device has no screen at all, and that is not an oversight. That is the entire point. Let me explain what this device actually does, and why the absence of a screen is the most important design decision, rather than the most obvious limitation. This device is always present, always aware of its context, always listening and watching, not in a waiting mode, not requiring an activation phrase. Actually understanding the difference between when you are talking to it and when you are just talking. Let me give you a concrete picture of what this means in daily life. You walk into your kitchen in the morning. You say out loud, "What should I make for breakfast?" The device sees what is in your refrigerator through its camera. It knows from previous conversations what you are trying to eat this week. It knows you had eggs yesterday. It knows you have a meeting in 40 minutes, and it suggests something specific. Not after you open an app, not after you typed anything, not after you said a wake word, just because you asked, like you were asking someone who was already there. Or you are working, and you say out loud to no one in particular, I need to remember to send that proposal to Jennifer tomorrow. The device registers it. It does not interrupt you. It does not ask you to confirm. Tomorrow, at an appropriate moment, it reminds you. One person close to the project described it this way, a friend who is a computer. Rather than a computer trying to be a friend, that distinction, small as it sounds, is the entire design philosophy. Here is what makes this project different from every previous attempt to build something like it, because there have been attempts, and they have all failed. Google Glass, the Humane AI pin, various smart glasses, and ambient computing devices. The technology graveyard is full of devices that were going to change everything, and didn't. So why would this be different? 3 reasons. And I think all 3 matter. The first is timing. Every previous attempt at ambient computing failed partly because the AI was not good enough. You were interacting with a sophisticated voice assistant, something that could set timers and play music, but could not actually understand you, could not maintain context, could not reason about your situation, could not be genuinely helpful in the way that changes how you feel about a tool. The AI is different now. Genuinely different. Not marginally better. Qualitatively different in what it can understand and do, and that changes what ambient computing can actually be. The second reason is exhaustion. When smart glasses launched in 2013, smartphones were still exciting. The idea of reducing screen time was not a pressing concern for most people. Now it is. Parents are worried about their children's development. Adults are watching their attention spans compress. People are feeling the cost of the attention economy in ways they could not have articulated a decade ago. The problem that this device is trying to solve is a problem people are now ready to acknowledge exists. The third reason is who is building it. The person who designed the iPhone was told nobody would pay $500 for a phone. The person who launched ChatGPT was told nobody would pay for AI. Both of them proved that the way to create demand is to create something genuinely new, not to address existing demand. To imagine something that people did not know they needed until it existed. When both of those people are working on the same project, that is not nothing. Here is how they are building it, because this is where the ambition becomes most visible, fitting the intelligence required for this device into something the size of your palm is not a software problem. It is a physics problem. Consider what happens when you use ChatGPT on your phone right now. Your request travels to server farms, massive installations of computing hardware, gets processed through billions of parameters, and travels back to your screen. All of that infrastructure needs to find its way into a device you can hold in one hand. That requires entirely new approaches to processing, new chip architectures, new thinking about what gets processed locally versus in the cloud, new approaches to power management. This is probably why the team assembled for this project includes physicists, not just designers, not just software engineers, physicists, because this is genuinely a physics problem. And here is what is clever about the approach being taken. By combining hardware designers directly with AI researchers, every component can be optimized together. The microphone placement can be designed specifically for how the AI processes audio. The camera can be calibrated exactly for the vision models it feeds. The form factor can be shaped for how the AI interprets proximity and gesture. It is the difference between assembling components that were designed separately and building a single integrated system where everything was designed to work together from the beginning. The manufacturing infrastructure is already in place. The same suppliers that make iPhones and AirPods are involved. This is not a prototype that will exist in a lab for a decade. This is being prepared for scale, real scale. The kind that changes what is normal. Now I want to talk about the thing that makes most people uncomfortable, because I think avoiding it would be dishonest. A device that is always present, always aware, always listening and watching, always learning about your life, is either the most useful thing that has ever existed in a home, or one of the most concerning. And I think both of those things can be true simultaneously. The concerns are real. A device with this level of awareness of your daily life, your routines, your conversations, your home, your relationships, creates data that has never existed before. The questions about who controls that data. What happens if it is breached? What happens if governments demand access? What happens to children who grow up with a device that has known everything about them since birth? These are not hypothetical concerns. They are real, and they deserve serious answers, not reassurances. Serious answers. What I will say is this. The person whose design reputation is attached to this device spent 30 years at a company that made privacy a central part of its brand. That reputation is not worth sacrificing for any product, and it is worth noting that a device which processes more data locally, rather than sending everything to cloud servers, might actually be more private than the smartphone you currently carry everywhere. Your phone knows where you go, what you search, who you call, what you buy, and sends most of that to servers you have no control over. The privacy question around this new device is real, but the privacy situation of the alternative we are all already living with is also worth examining honestly. Here is what I think this is really about. Not the hardware, not even the AI, something more fundamental. For 50 years, computing has been organized around a specific metaphor. Files and folders, windows and applications, a visual interface built for the assumption that humans needed to learn how to interact with computers. Even the smartphone, as revolutionary as it was, is a portable version of the same metaphor. A smaller screen with smaller versions of the same concepts. What is being proposed with this device is a different metaphor entirely. Not human learning to interface with computer. Computer understanding enough about human to meet human where human actually is. No learning curve, no modes to switch between, no apps to open, just the natural act of wanting something and having something nearby that understands what that means and helps. The way a person would help, the way someone who knows you well would help, without being asked to perform help, without requiring you to translate your need into the language of the interface. That shift, if it works, is not a new product category. It is a new relationship between people and technology. And everything about how we work and live and learn and create would eventually be organized differently around it. Let me be honest about where this is, because I think honesty serves you better than hype. The device is in active development. Prototypes exist. There are reports of technical challenges, which should not surprise anyone building something genuinely new. The target for a first consumer release is late 2026, which means we are approximately a year away from finding out whether this works, whether the vision translates into something people actually want to use, whether the privacy concerns get addressed in ways that make people comfortable, whether the AI is genuinely good enough to make the screenless interface feel like a liberation rather than a limitation. None of that is certain. The history of ambitious hardware projects is full of things that seemed inevitable and weren't, and full of things that seemed impossible, that changed everything. The honest answer is that we do not know yet which category this falls into. What I believe is this: even if this specific device does not become the next iPhone, even if the timeline slips, even if the form factor requires adjustment, the question being asked is the right question. Is the glass rectangle really the best we can do? Is typing into a chatbot really the most natural way for humans to access the most powerful technology ever built? Those questions are worth asking, and the fact that serious people with serious resources are asking them and building toward an answer means something. Here is where I want to leave you. We are in a strange moment. The AI has become genuinely extraordinary. The interface we use to access it has barely changed. We are talking to something that can understand almost anything by typing into the same basic design we have been using for decades. And somewhere, in a design studio, people are working on what comes next, not because they think they can make a better phone, but because they think the phone might not be the right answer at all. Late 2026, that is when we find out whether the next chapter of computing is something we look at, or something we live inside, whether technology continues to demand our attention, or finally learns to fit into a life, rather than asking a life to organize itself around technology. I do not know exactly what that future looks like, but I am paying attention to the people who are trying to build it, and I think you should be too.